So good morning, this is Internships, a crash course with Rose Nakamoto, director of our Santa Clara University Career Center, and she'll be really focusing today on preparing Santa Clara students for a dynamic and changing workplace. We're so lucky to be able to focus on this issue today with Rose, who brings a lot of expertise to Santa Clara and is working so closely with our students to really lead us into the future, because as she'll talk about, the career services of when the parents on the line were coming through college looks very different than the career services that your students need for today and tomorrow. She's been leading the Career Center now for a few years and comes to us with lots of experience developing services and programs and products to support our students and alumni throughout career services while they're here at Santa Clara and then throughout the rest of their life. She brings over 12 years of experiences from other institutions as well, really focused on recruitment and talent acquisition within HR, coordinating employment and workplace development initiatives, and comes to us with a real global view too, with some great Silicon Valley tech companies and Fortune 500 companies as well. She really draws her inspiration for her work through the development and innovation of career and professional education practices. And she herself got a bachelor's from University of California at Santa Cruz, and then a master's in counseling education and career development from San Jose State University. She'll get a chance to dive into our agenda in a moment. All of those who are logged in will be able to see the slides as she advances. We have quite a few people on the line, so we'll be able to describe to what's on there. But what you'll see as we then click through our presentation is just how this conversation really fits into the larger university. So Santa Clara's vision overall is to really educate citizens and leaders of what you'll hear is very the Jesuit ethos of the 3 C's: confidence, conscience, and compassion, and cultivate knowledge and faith to build a more humane, just, and sustainable world. So it's not only focusing on the development of our students now, but the impact that they have on the larger world now and when they go forward. It's also, this is so key to where Santa Clara wants to head with our integrated strategic plan, really providing a life-changing Jesuit education for our students. And the first goal of the integrated strategic plan, this matches up so well. So what you'll hear today is where the university really wants to go to provide more internships and fellowships and senior projects and international opportunities for our students, as well as helping our students develop careers that align with their values, passions, and talents, which is really something special at Santa Clara. It's leveraging our connections to Silicon Valley and the rest of the world, but through that Jesuit lens of being a whole person. And then the last, we're really focused as a university of driving innovation and entrepreneurship in service of humanity. So you hear a lot of echoes of that through our conversation today as well. So without further ado, I am grateful to be able to introduce Rose to kick it off from here. And we look forward to hearing her presentation and your questions at the end.
Thanks so much, Jen, and good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here and very happy to connect with you all virtually. I appreciate the context Jen shared about my background and certainly our work here at Santa Clara University. I've been at Santa Clara for about 5 years, and I've been in the field of, as Jen has shared, of workforce development, working with rising senior leaders in tech companies and Fortune 500 companies. And this is such an exciting and dynamic time for higher ed, but certainly in career services, and I'll talk more about that. But for our agenda today, I want to start off by doing sort of Internships 101. Many of you who work in industry are well aware of the value of internships, and certainly as you think about this for your son or daughter, the value of internships. But I do want to kind of provide a quick overview and then transition into how things, as we know, the research that I've been doing in collaboration with others here in Silicon Valley, what the changing landscape looks like for work and implications for our students' development. And then some internship preparation strategies. We'll kind of get into a tactical place where I can talk about some really good strategies and tips to help students prepare for that process, and then an overview of some of our services programs to help support students. So go ahead and advance. There we go. Thanks, Jen. So Internships 101, what is an internship? So yes, an internship can certainly be an extension of a student's educational focus and interest. And where this can really range for our students can be, for a bioengineer, for example, it could be that they're interested in an R&D internship, and that would more directly relate to their area of study. But for a psychology major, for example, perhaps they're interested in a human resources internship. So the way that that internship connects or intersects with their education really varies. Sometimes it's directly applied, sometimes it's a little bit more loosely connected. But it really should tie in with the student's interests, their goals, their aspirations, and it absolutely should involve real world of work experience in a professional setting. If we're to look at internships or the benefits for students as we know them, and one thing I would encourage you, and we certainly talk with our students about this, as they're evaluating opportunities, these opportunities should have clearly defined objectives. Now, if an employer is being thoughtful in how they are casting an internship program, they should make sure that there are clearly defined objectives. So this certainly could align with the student's interests and goals, but also needs to be strategic in its focus. And I'll talk a little bit more about that from an industry perspective. Certainly, we encourage students to pursue internships where there's an actual tangible work product or project that will be an outcome of their time, whether that's a summer internship, an internship that goes on throughout the course of the year. There should be something they walk away with from that experience. Regular guidance, supervision, and feedback is so important. There's a great deal of investment that companies should be making in their interns. And so it's not uncommon now that students have virtual mentors or virtual supervisors, sometimes more than one, but having students ask questions in the selection process about what kind of guidance and feedback they will be receiving is really important. And then encouragement of team participation is always a great sign if an intern is included in important business meetings where they're actually treated as a team member of that unit they're a part of. Now, on the converse side, some reasons why employers are actively seeking interns, and we hear this all the time from companies. In fact, I was talking to the head of Bloom Energy's HR department, and they really look to their interns for an influx of new ideas and fresh insights. And when I hear a company or an organization that's shaping their internship program around that, they see the value of the perspective students bring. That's always really energizing. We look for that in our partnership with employers. This is absolutely a big talent pipeline development for organizations. They see interns and our students as the future of their workforce. Also regeneration and retention. So a lot of internship programs, if they're set up well, they're really used to funnel retaining those students, those that are fit, into their organizations post-graduation. And then for organizations that have an aging workforce, internships is a great way to sort of regenerate that. And then this also provides a really close connection between industry and education. One of the things I wanted to share that we hear time and time again from our employers that hire our students is the uniqueness of our Santa Clara students as opposed to some of our other campuses here in the Bay Area. So having come from Stanford right before Santa Clara, and then I've also worked at San Jose State, one of the things that we hear from employers, Santa Clara students are really hardworking. They're willing to roll their sleeves up and dig in quickly. In fact, I've heard from several different HR heads that have said, you know, we like to hire Stanford students, but they tend to like to come in and tell us how to run our business versus Santa Clara students that are willing to learn and they're eager and they're open and they're hardworking. So we have a great reputation here in the Valley. And in addition to our great reputation, our students at Santa Clara are so motivated to engage. So we did a first destination survey of our students last year, and 80% of our students who are graduating, the respondents of this survey said they had participated in at least one internship throughout their time here at Santa Clara, and that's far above the national average. The National Association of Colleges and Employers produces a statistic every year, the average number of students who participate in internships, that's only about 56%. So our students, by and large, I see they come in first year, second year, they're really eager to get experience. Sometimes they've had internships already. So that's a testament to the motivation of our students and their eagerness to engage in experiential learning. The other thing that I think is part of the shift that I'm about to talk about in terms of the changing landscape of work is what employers want. So to exemplify sort of employer perceptions of the value of experiential learning and professional experience during college, this slide shows the research study conducted by the Chronicle of Higher Education. And in order to understand employer expectations related to the role of universities and how they are to, sort of career preparation of our students, 50,000 employers were invited to participate, and they were asked, how much do you weight, each of these areas? And so for those of you who are calling in that can't see, employers were asked, what is the value of internships versus employment during college major choice, volunteer experience, extracurricular activities, GPA, relevant coursework, college reputation, and which of these things, how do they stack? And by and large, internships and employment during college were their top two most important credentials that they look for on a resume. So while educational components like college major, GPA, college reputation were certainly noted, employers ranked the value of experiences outside of academics as the two most important credentials in the evaluation process. So employers really look for student familiarity with the professional world, and they also look for concrete evidence of what students have accomplished over any particular major or area of study. And so if we're to look at this changing landscape, and this is where we really get a lot of our energy in career services as we think about how we're going to be shaping our work to support students now and in the future, the changing landscape of work, learning, and society is a topic that's really become top of mind for us in career services. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity presented to us in higher ed at large, and certainly in career services, one that's distinct from recent decades. How do we consider and leverage the changes impacting many sectors and many industries? And there's a few things I want to highlight here to share sort of where we are in relation to this changing landscape. So Zoe Baird, who is the CEO of the Markle Foundation. The Markle Foundation is doing incredible workforce development work nationwide. And Zoe Baird, the CEO, has cited that as a society, we are experiencing the biggest disruption in the workforce in over 100 years, since the transition from an agricultural society to an industrial society, and now from an industrial society to a digital age. We are on the doorstep of a new era, the digital age, or as the World Economic Forum defines as the fourth industrial revolution. At its core, this new era is technology-driven, but most critically, it must be human-centered. As Klaus Schwab, who's the founder of the World Economic Forum, underscores, it's about leveraging science and technology to serve humanity to its fullest potential. This next slide that I'm showing you is a graph that talks about this industrial revolution that we're going through. And according to the World Economic Forum, the first industrial revolution you see here, Industry 1.0, really we were liberated as humankind from animal power. And the second industrial revolution, Industry 2.0, made mass production possible. The third industrial revolution brought digital capabilities to billions of people. And the fourth industrial revolution, the one that we're just beginning to enter into, is fundamentally different from all of the others because it's characterized by a range of new technologies that are fusing the physical, the digital, and biological worlds. Now, if I can kind of bring this back into focus to us in higher ed and our work to support students' development, how we're starting to put a focus on this. This next slide really focuses on Gen Z and the modern worker. What we know about this sort of new workplace is that it's modern, it's global, data-driven, with fast-paced communication and innovation emerging from collaborative environments with a multidisciplinary approach to problem solving. We know that it's estimated that 65% of Gen Z, and Gen Z are our current learners now, so your sons and daughters are part of this generation. It's not the millennial generation. The millennials have been out in the workforce for quite some time. Gen Z are those who were born from 1995 to 2015, and they will end up doing about 65 to 85% of them work that does not yet exist. So what does that mean? The infrastructure, the structures of learning, the structures of experiential learning. If students are going to be going out into the world 5 to 10 years from now, doing work that doesn't exist, how are we preparing them for that workforce? In addition, another sort of shift that's happened with this generation, a 2016 LinkedIn study showed that it's very normal now for college grads entering into the workplace. They're going to change jobs 4 times in their first decade out of college, and not just change jobs, but industry switch, change sectors altogether. There's lots of research that suggests that's going to become very common for folks, today's learners. By the time they're in their mid-30s, they will have between 8 to 10 jobs. So there's a lot of rapid sort of prototyping with career that's happening. And then another shift that we're seeing, the study that was done by the Institute for the Future and Dell Technologies in 2017, by 2030, So the workforce of the future will create new work and learning infrastructures. So there's going to be a need to constantly reskill and upskill and develop new expertise and acquire knowledge to do work successfully. So this idea of in-the-moment learning and the ability to gain knowledge, new knowledge, will be valued much higher over the knowledge people already have. So these are some big disruptions as we talk about the fourth industrial revolution. How is it impacting the workplace? And then how is it impacting the formation of our students? So one example I really want to hone in on, because again, we could do a deep dive into this, but I'm going to do a brief overview. Some new skills that need to be sort of rapidly developed over the course of today's learner's lifetime, and the iterative nature of career. If we want to talk about really focused on the skills that we're seeing. So for many years in career services, what we've talked about when we work with students are these top 10 skills that employers seek in recent grads, regardless of major. So the National Association of Colleges and Employers every year surveys employers and say, what are those top 10 skills? And for those of you who cannot see this slide, I'll read through: problem-solving skills, ability to work on a team, communication skills, strong work ethic, analytical skills, communication skills, flexibility. By and large, over the last decade, these skills have remained pretty static. They haven't changed. Maybe there's been some shifting in order. But given the growing complexity of work, we will soon see the end of the single skill set as king and emergence of new in-demand workplace skills. Through a connection with the Institute for the Future, Santa Clara's Career Center was invited to be a fellow of the Institute for the Future this spring, as they were looking at what are the new in-demand skills for the workplace, and what does the new learner have to look like as we enter 2020 and beyond. And according to Institute for the Future, now they're a renowned incubation and research firm up in Palo Alto. They do phenomenal research on the work and learning future. Within the next 3 years, the jobs that will not be disrupted by technology and the shifts that we're seeing happening, the jobs that are here to stay, about 30% of those core skills that will be required for them will be completely different. So the pace of change is rapid. And for jobs here to stay, there's going to be a fusion of these single skills that we just talked about, or in many ways, the development of a new value system about the qualities and skills workers will need to possess. So if I can, for those of you who can't see this slide, the World Economic Forum and Institute for the Future came out with this sort of cutting edge research about what does it look like, the future of work. Let me just read to you some of these skills. Ethical reasoning was one of the top 10 skill sets, and one of the reasons why Santa Clara was invited to engage with the Institute of the Future is our unique focus in the formation of our students, our holistic approach, developing ethical leaders of the future. That's really going to be so important. I think Santa Clara is so well positioned to step into the future needs of our society. So ethical reasoning is one of those in-demand skills. Transdiscipline competency. So the idea that, again, problems aren't solved in a silo. You're going to need sociologists, you're going to need engineers looking at a problem together. And that is the future, not necessarily within a silo solving problems. Cognitive agility, creativity, and adaptive thinking. So an underlying sort of skill of creativity is empathy, and the ability to develop empathetic leaders, so important for the future. Social intelligence, not even the ability to understand from a consumer base, what is it that if you have customers that you're trying to engage, what is it that matters to them? Leveraging empathy to understand that, and as a manager or a leader, how can you capitalize on social intelligence to move your team forward? Virtual collaboration, cross-cultural competency, ethical reasoning, as I just talked about, computational thinking. These are, again, more hybrid skills, more complex skills, a fusion of different independent single skills. And so really this illustrates for me one small component of how models of career services need to shift. And so the future of career services is going to look very different than what it has in previous decades. And one of the things I want to point out is that career services for many institutions across the nation have really been on the periphery of a college campus. We've been a service that students can engage in if they choose to, but we've not ever been sort of really integrated into the undergraduate experience. And I think that needs to change. We would really love to be partners with the institution as it relates to workforce development needs, as it relates to supporting the exploration, the discernment, and the preparation of our students in new and exciting ways to be ready for this future. So that's really sort of my vision for our work, is to be much more meaningfully integrated into the undergraduate experience. Now, if we can shift gears here to talk about internship preparation strategies, and because one of the shifts that we're seeing in workforce development is we know students are going to be prototyping their careers, they're going to be making lots of shifts and changes. What employers are then saying is, you know what, as evidenced by the earlier slide, we really need to see that students have evidence of skill development and work experience. So internships are so important. And I want to talk about, as you work with your students, encouraging them in this process. This is some of the information that we give to students as they think about how to prepare and be successful. So I'm going to go through some tips how to get ready. Really, students need to think about the fall, year over year, and I will say this is one of the healthiest and most exciting job markets for college students in the 12 years I've worked in this field. It's still very competitive, but because it is such a healthy market, employers are trying to reach students earlier and earlier. So by and large, if a student is looking for an internship for the next summer, so let's say they're a sophomore or they're a junior, they should start in the fall quarter. So as evidenced by this statistic, I have a slide up here from the National Association of Colleges and Employers, 75% of employers indicate that they'll be on campus to recruit full-time and internships in the fall. That's a big proportion. And over the last 6 years, we've seen that percentage continue to increase. The fall recruitment focus is very heavy. So students should start be thinking in the fall about their internship search. Number 2 tip is to develop a targeted resume. So get your resume noticed. It's so important to get your foot in the door, having a targeted resume. Employers spend, I would say, between 5 and 7 seconds, 20 seconds, yes, that's a generous amount of time. Skilled recruiters are able to quickly scan resumes to look for fit. Oftentimes, I think the two biggest mistakes or missed opportunities I see with our students, and a really important coaching opportunity for them, is 2 things. One is to make sure that they're speaking to the employer's needs. Who is the audience here in the room? The other is they should definitely include class projects, presentations, research, work leadership on campus, volunteer experiences. Oftentimes students think they just have to cite jobs on a resume, but they should integrate what they're doing in the class in their resume. Tip number 3 is, what is your intended impact? So again, I think oftentimes students think this is a document I'm going to put together and apply for an opportunity, but in order to get noticed, students really need to understand who their audience is and what are the hiring needs of this individual or this unit, and then tailor their document as a strategic marketing tool. So students should refer to the job description. They should include relevant experience first. Use important keywords. Use that job description to understand those key skills and experiences and integrate some of that language. Highlight projects. Again, it's often an overlooked opportunity. Be clear and focused. We can certainly help students. I think the bread and butter of our service is helping students with their resumes. So we can help them with that through 15-minute and 30-minute appointments. Another tip is using Handshake. So for those of you not familiar with what Handshake is our job and internship platform. We moved to Handshake a couple years ago. It's a really dynamic and exciting CSM system for us, a place for students to explore and apply to relevant jobs and internships, learn about upcoming events and recruiting programs through the Career Center, plan for a career fair, schedule appointments with their career coach. A very dynamic space. In fact, Business Insider, end of 2017, I marked Handshake as one of the top 50 startups to watch in 2018. That were Insider Garrett Lord was the CEO of Handshake. He is actually not too long ago graduated from University of Michigan about 5 years ago, and his vision is really to democratize the access for opportunities for all students. So this is a phenomenal organization. One of the things that we're moving towards with Handshake, I just want to share, the future of recruiting is tending to be more and more sourcing. So employers want really easy ways and meaningful ways to connect with students, and Handshake has the opportunity for employers to connect and message students directly. So just to give you a quick snapshot, about 13,000 internships were posted from July until March of this year. It's about a 15% increase over last year. So many opportunities in there. Also about 800 fellowships, volunteer opportunities. 24,000 full-time positions were posted this year, up 15% over the last year. So this is a great opportunity. One quick strategy here to use Handshake. Encourage your students, and we do as well, that they should be sourcing companies of interest on LinkedIn and then apply through Handshake, because Handshake gives students that Santa Clara advantage. Handshake is a place where employers are posting opportunities because they're specifically interested in our students. So start building a network. We know this is the case. Of all the universities I've worked at, Santa Clara has the most welcoming community of alumni. So our students should be trying to earmark 1 or 2 informational interviews at least a year. Reach out to alums that were from your major. Ask them about their path and their journey. It doesn't necessarily just have to be when you're searching for an internship, but they should really be cultivating those relationships. And we can help them in the Career Center learn how to tap into that hidden network. You know, most jobs are secured through connections. And then number 5, make the most. Students should make the most of any and all opportunities. I think oftentimes internship is such an important sort of hot topic, but internships are not the only way to get great experience. So leadership experience on campus, fellowships, research, class projects, these are all important learning experiences. We often tell students, you know, they should be curious. They should really observe organizational culture when they're in their internship. Does that feel like a fit in addition to the position that they're in? They should help others, be willing to reach out and provide their support. Always ask for guidance and feedback, build connections in their internship experience, and get a good reference. Make sure that they're building connections and staying in touch with their mentors, their supervisors, so that they can leverage those connections for their next steps. And then a couple of words about our work here at Santa Clara. I sort of weaved in a little bit about our focus looking to the future and how we can create infrastructure, products, and services to really help launch our students. Really, our work involves a passion for helping students find their fit, the discovery of the intersection of their talents, what brings them joy, and what the world needs. Oftentimes, it's overlooked. Students tend to jump to, I am this major and I need to find out what opportunities exist for me. Really, an important part of the discernment process is looking inward first, asking the big questions about their fit, their talents, and then how they want to apply those is an important process. So because we sit in the heart of Silicon Valley, as a result, we are uniquely positioned to engage with a diverse, energetic, entrepreneurial spirit here that are the hallmarks of Silicon Valley, and we certainly leverage that in our own entrepreneurial spirit in the Career Center. We encourage students to take advantage of the portfolio of career education and services that we offer, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, so they can use and leverage the vibrant employment marketplace here in the Valley to leverage their own development and launch themselves as they prepare for the future. Now, just some examples of tangible resources. This next slide talks about our website, which I encourage you to go to and visit if you haven't already. That's where students log into Handshake. They can request assessments, which I'll talk about, access internship search tools, explore our events calendar, which has all of our programs there. They can like us on Facebook to stay updated with our programs and services. Utilize our job prep toolkit, which has resume samples, cover letters, networking tips, how to navigate salary offers and job offers. Interviewing prep, including Big Interview, which is a virtual software program that helps students prepare for mock interviews virtually 24/7. And then our assessments. I'm going to go now into some of our bread and butter of our programs, which some of you may be familiar with. But assessments, as I mentioned, this is such an important starting place for many students. The question about who am I and what are my talents. All students, regardless of how certain they are about their path, I encourage them. The I Start Strong is a wonderful assessment. It's particularly helpful for students who aren't sure about their major or unsure about what jobs exist in alignment with their interests. This assessment is free and it's available for all students to take through our website. They can then follow up for an interpretation lab with our staff, our really talented team of staff, to help them figure out their next steps. We also offer Strengths Quest, which is a phenomenal platform for students to explore their top areas of talent. So this assessment yields 5 top areas of strength that's unique to each student and how they can articulate those talents to others, and then ways for them to think about developing these strengths over the course of their tenure here at Santa Clara. And then we also do professional and career development support. So some of the ways that we do that, we offer what's called professional labs throughout the year on topics that can really be entry points for students into the process. So some examples of those labs that we do: resume and career fair prep labs, ACER interviewing lab. We also do, as I mentioned before, I Start Strong labs for students who want to explore their assessment further. And then in addition to that, one thing new that we're doing this year are career pop-ups. So instead of asking students to come into our office to engage with us, We've done a number of career pop-ups all over campus where really informally we'll sort of do some blast marketing to students, let them know we're going to be on this location for this time. We've got coffee and donuts, come by and chat with your career coach. And trying to meet students where they are. And having it be less sort of demystifying what can feel like kind of a stressful thing to come into a career center and ask the big question about my future, trying to make the barriers less for students to engage with us. So that's something that we've been doing and we will continue to do. And in addition to that, there's a lot of industry events that we do, and these really vary. I mean, part of our role as we see it as in the career center is to be connection facilitators for our students. So some industry events that we've done recently, Kickstart Your Social Impact Career. So for students interested in mission-driven work, we had an industry expert from idealist.org come and talk about how do you break into the nonprofit world, social enterprise world? What does that process look like? And then we had about 30 organizations locally from the Bay Area come and interact with students that had internships, fellowships, part-time, full-time opportunities. Just last night, actually, we launched our first diversity awards and expo. We had about 35 companies, really ranging from Cisco to Yelp to smaller organizations like the Healthcare Trust that came to talk about what does the future of the workforce look like as it relates to diversity and inclusion. And we had student award winners who presented on their vision for a diverse workforce and the impact they hope to make in that space. Really exciting and energizing. D&I initiatives are a big focus here in the Valley, certainly in tech companies. Another program that we're doing, we're really excited about, is embarking on industry treks. So not just taking industry, bringing them to Santa Clara, but taking our students out into industry. We just did one this week, Meta, which is an augmented reality organization. They have all kinds of internship opportunities ranging from sales to HR, to working with their R&D folks and development of their technology. We brought about 20 students to Meta this week, and as it turns out, 3 of them landed interviews right afterwards. So it's a fantastic way to explore opportunities in the Valley, engage students with our alumni, and hopefully open some doors for them. Career fairs are one of many ways students can connect with employers, and we offer 6 career fairs a year. And these topics range from big career fairs like our fall career fair. You see the graphic listed here. Our fall career fair usually pulls anywhere from 120 companies to 160 companies. Big general fair to smaller fairs like we did this year. We did a healthcare and wellness fair focused on healthcare professions, digital healthcare, pre-health programs. We have an engineering career fair, a winter career fair, a career fair for our first and second year students. So it really runs the gamut. So I'd encourage students to go to our website, and certainly for those students who are interested in internships, come to our fall career fair because that's where a lot of great companies will be hiring interns. And some of the companies, just to give you a sense who recruits here, I mentioned earlier about some of our postings on Handshake, but this year alone we had over 400 unique companies recruit through our on-campus programs that spanned on-campus interviewing, career fairs, tech talks, and those companies were Twitter, Google, Genentech, Tesla, Oracle, all the way down to small startup companies. So we have big companies we work with, small, medium-sized companies, but our geographic location and the reputation of our programs and students means that there's a high demand for our students. Next, I want to share with you this slide, which introduces some of our staff, our career development specialists that bring a wealth of experience and expertise in their support to support our students. I want to introduce Megan Kress, who is our undergraduate business and engineering career development specialist. She supports all of our undergraduate business and engineering students. She's wonderful. She is a Bronco, but she brings a lot of experience from industry. She worked in startups, she worked in consulting, but we're really happy to have her. She's a great resource for our students. Christina Kwan, she supports our undergraduate arts and sciences students. She brings a design background. She was actually responsible for our Diversity Works and Awards Expo. She's a wonderful resource for all of our undergraduate arts and sciences students. And then Amy Peterson supports some select graduate programs. And then Dean Koo is also great, lots of industry background. He was an entrepreneur coming to us from Santa Clara. He's also a Bronco. He supports our alumni. So when your students graduate, they still have support from a career coaching standpoint in our office. And then one thing I want to highlight is just often parents ask, what are some ways that I can support my students? And so if I can just share some tips with you as we kind of wrap up this session and then make way for some question and answers, I would encourage you You know, one of the things that we really see from our students, many of them are very motivated. Sometimes they get stuck and they feel like they don't know how to move forward. And so really important to allow the space and time, encourage them to reflect on their strengths and their interests. That time and that space for discernment is so important. So encourage, before students think about the tactical part of the job search, encourage them to really understand who they are and their strengths. And there's some ways that we can help them in that process. Also encourage your students to get as much experience as possible, and broad experience, inside and outside of the classroom. And again, it doesn't just have to be internships. There's wonderful fellowship opportunities offered through the campus. Our website actually has a whole section focused on how do you build great experience, links to fellowship, research, volunteer opportunities across campus. Get lots of experience, explore and try on things. The other thing I would encourage you to do is encourage their networking efforts. Santa Clara alumni community, your networks, the family networks, having discussions and learning about people's pathways and journeys, even if it doesn't yield a job opportunity at the end of that, can be very rewarding and enriching for students to open up possibilities. And then suggest your friends, your coworkers, contacts for relevant informational interviews for your students. And help students see the big picture. So often we see students paralyzed by the choice of major, and will this major open up doors for me? Will it prohibit me from doing certain things? Really, major doesn't always equal career. With some exceptions of the accounting field or market-driven majors or pre-health, I would say that majors can be applied in so many different ways. So allow them to see that this is a time for exploration, and not to feel too hemmed in by the stresses and the sort of the competitiveness that can often happen with wanting to get experience and wanting to succeed and achieve. So with that, I'd like to sort of wrap up the content portion. I know I've done a lot of speaking and I've gone through a lot of information fairly quickly. Again, this is meant to be a quick crash course. We could certainly go deeper in all these topics, but I'm happy and interested to engage in your questions. And so maybe we can turn it over to